Hey, hi everyone. Hi
Hi.
Lucky.
Hi.
Um, I just have a question in regards to when you say that you continue on being consistent and you continue on doing the right things and having that strength in your mind to continue on going because it's what you love or it's something that you've enjoyed as far as volunteer work or work or obligations, and you want to stay because you know you can do good work and you're conversing correctly in a professional manner and trying to take the upper hand of that higher consciousness that you talk about. But every time you do, you get disrespected and having to prove yourself. When is it a time where you can allow the mind to kind of disconnect, like that internal conflict between wanting to leave because it no longer serves purpose and wanting to stay because it's within you, that purpose? If I'm making myself clear, I don't know if I am.
Okay. So this is kind of goes to another part of something. If we say that we are the creator of our lives, right? Another word for life would be experience. We're the creator of our experience. So if we're the creator of our experience, we have to sit down and think about what type of experience we want to create. When we say experience, right, we're talking about how do we want to feel about something that we're doing or being or having. But that doing or being or having isn't is is not a specific place or a specific person or a specific thing. It is it is like when people say, I want to go on vacation. That's an experience. But there's 1,000 places people go on vacation. They go to Los Angeles, they go to New York, they go to Florida, they go to Puerto Rico, they go to the Bahamas, they go to 1,000 different places. So you can go 1,000 different places to have an experience. But the place that you go is based on the type of on what that experience is to you. So if you went to one of those places, you may not like it, but somebody else may love it, right? So your experience that you want to create is based on your choice, what it is you want to create. So what is it you want? What type of experience do you want to have? You can say, what is it? What is it you're trying to create? What type of experience are you trying to have? Sometimes we don't think about it that way. So we think that we have to go to a certain place or go to a certain person in order to have, because we think that experience has to go through them. But there's 1,000 different places and 1,000 different people that you can get an experience like it from. There are 1,000 different people to date. You would still call them your significant other. There's 1,000 places to go. You would still call it vacation. So what you want to do is find the right one for you. But you can't find the right one for you until you define what you want your experience to be. And sometimes that's hard to do when we try to define our experience through a particular place or person or circumstance or situation, because it may not actually match what we're trying to experience, right? So when you decide I want to be something, right, whatever that is, then that is, since you're the creator, you define your experience. What is it you want to be? I want to work here. How many hours do you want to work? How much money do you want to get paid? What do you want your experience with your coworkers to be? Because people are an experience. Just like a location's an experience, a business is an experience. It's an experience called business. They're all experiences. So if we don't define what we want to get out of that experience, then we're going to limit ourselves a lot of times they're going to limit what we think our experience to be based on where we're getting it from, right? So we're trying to have an experience bigger than the place that we're trying to have it. But we're going through there because we think in order to have this experience, we have to work here. But there's 1,000 different places, or we have to vacation here. There's 1,000 different places. So in order to be in control of your life, the creator of your life, the creator of your experience, you now have to start controlling your experience by creating that. So just like if you owned your own business, you would name it. You would decide what type of business you have, how many hours you worked, where the location was. You would create every part of it as a reflection of your experience. So you do the same thing with your employment. Employment is just an experience. So then sit down and think about what type of experience do you want to have called employment. How do you want your job to go? Where do you want to work? Not necessarily just necessarily the place. It could be a place, but what is your experience from that place? Because it doesn't matter what the building looks like if you don't like it. It doesn't matter what the building looks like if you do like it. So you want to focus in on what you want your experience to be, called employment, right? It's an experience. How do you want to feel at the end of the day? What do you want your relationship with your coworkers to be? Those are all things you can control because you're not trying to control them. You are using them as a resource that reflects your experience, your desired experience. But you can't do that if you haven't created, if you haven't decided how it's going to go for you. If you just get there and say, let's see how it goes, well, you can see how that works. Because essentially what you're doing now is you're letting someone else create it for you. They're thinking and you're not. They're thinking about how it's going to go. They're going to tell you what to do. They're going to tell you this and tell you that. And you're just showing up to work hoping it goes okay. Those are two different states of mind. So to answer your question, everything that we do for an experience. And in order to have the best experience, we must create it, meaning we must choose and decide what we want that experience to be like. Where we're going, how we're going, what it's like, what our time is like, what our interactions with people where we are is going to be like. That is our right as the creator to control our life. We're not trying to control others, and we don't need to control others. But as we get a clear understanding of what we want our experience to be, it will start to shape and rearrange the things around us to reflect that. And then we can have the life that we want. And we don't require other people to be changed or moved. We're able to be what we want because we have chosen what that is. We're the creator of our life. So that starts here first. And that's what I mean by creating. That's what I mean by holding on to that thought, so that it will create those things. It will move people in and out of the way according to your thought life, right? Because you need a physical thing to reflect your thought, right? So keep everything in experience, choosing how you want it to go.
That was well said. Can you add to that kind of how we function naturally, like telling ourselves stories? That's just kind of how humans are. So like, can you elaborate on the same concept that you were just talking about, but kind of explaining it in a way where we're talking about like the stories we tell ourselves?
So in life, we attach meanings to things, right? And sometimes those are called stories. So, and sometimes the stories are good and sometimes the stories are bad, right? Like you see some people who tell themselves stories like, man, I'm always winning. Like all the girls like me. Or all the guys think I'm handsome. Or, man, I'm always getting good deals when I go to the mall. But they're stories. They're things that we are repeatedly telling ourselves that our world actually forms to supply us. Because it is the creator declaring and decreeing. It's what we're assuming ourselves to be. We're assuming how things to go. So what happens is we have a thought. And then what happens is we do something. And then when we do something, it works out, and then it reinforces our thoughts, so we believe it more. But what happens is it works both ways. There's the other stories we tell ourselves. Oh man, these are jobs ain't nothing. Man, everywhere I go, every time I have a new job, my boss hates me. Man, the coworkers are always talking bad about me. Man, how come every time I leave, I always get stuck in traffic? There's stories that we tell ourselves because we may have an experience, and so we make a moment an identity. We make one moment of time, one thing that happens, we make it our identity. We make it like this always happens to us now. So we make a moment a belief. We make it an identity. So we turn a moment into an hour, and an hour into a day, and a day into a week. We start making something that happened once all the time. We start to believe that this is just the way it goes for us. And we don't realize that it's according to our belief that things go to us, that things happen. Things are always happening in the world to everyone, right? But depending on who we are, we deal with things different. Like, oh yeah, this is not for me, right? So this is not how it goes for me. This is what's happening, but this is not my end, right? This is just a little turbulence, from the ground to the blue sky. In the middle, there's a little turbulence, but I'm always safe, right? Things are always working out for me. We have a set of thoughts and feelings that we have conditioned to believe are true from experiences. And we don't realize that's all we're doing. So when we say something, we're keeping it real, right? But that's actually what we're doing is we're keeping it real in our life. We're keeping it active in our life by giving our attention to it, our intention, our attention, our focus. We are magnifying we're magnifying the Lord. It means we're magnifying the law, that as a mind thinks, so is it, right? That according to your faith, be it unto you. So we're magnifying that whatever we're thinking to be true and feeling to be true, we're expanding in our life. So we have to be careful with our mind where we're focusing our attention and what we're telling ourselves and what we're believing ourselves to be or do or have. We have to become conscious. The whole point of this, the whole point of our group is to understand that we're always doing all these things. The point is to become conscious of which ones we do. Or we're always telling ourselves a story. We always believe something about ourselves. We have to figure out what that is and make sure it's advantageous instead of destructive, right? Or limiting, right? Because that's not true. And the truth will enslave you. That's why we feel bad when we feel sick. That's why we feel bad when we feel poor. We feel bad when things aren't working out, because that's what's happening, but that's not what has to be. But if we don't feel bad, we won't have an alarm. We won't have anything to say, it doesn't have to be this way. We'll just accept it. So that feeling of incongruency is just an opportunity to say, hey, maybe it's going this way, but I can change it. And the truth is you can change it. We can create anything. So whatever we can create, we can uncreate. Whatever we can attach, we can detach from. But it's just understanding who we are so that we realize that what we're saying is what we're getting. And it will never change until we change what we're saying and until we change what we're thinking, right? What we think and say has to go together, right? So the stories we tell ourselves are a lot of times just habitual beliefs based on experiences, and we think because it's this way, it's always going to be this way. And that's great if you're telling yourself positive things, but if you're telling yourself destructive things, which is what most people do, which is why they call this so-called positive thinking, they have to call it something because normal thinking isn't positive. Meaning it's not enlightening, illuminating, inspiring, uplifting, encouraging. It's not positive or productive. It is negative, it is destructive, it tears you down. It's, oh, well, just go along and get along. It's flu season. Oh, well, you gotta do this and have that, and you gotta do what you don't want so you can do what you do. It's a whole bunch of learned ignorance that people just make up and agree to. And so everybody's going along like sheep going to the slaughter because they're all thinking the same way, right? So we have to be mindful of what we're telling ourselves because we are the creator of our lives, of our experience. And if we are telling ourselves that it's always working bad for us, people don't like us, my boss always hates me, all we're doing is reinforcing that in our mind and keeping it active in our lives. So we have to be mindful of what we're saying and the stories we tell ourselves. That's what affirmations do. That's what scripting does. It allows you to sit down and write a story about yourself. Sit down and write a story about your life, how you want it to be and how you want it to go. You are the power to create any and everything. But if you don't consciously do that, the world will program you through TV, the radio, friends, society. People can't wait to give you some bad news. So if you sit down with somebody and they say, hey, how you doing? And you're like, oh man, I'm great. Man, everything is working for me. All the world means me well and treats me kindly. Everyone is a link in the chain of my goods. Man, they'll move their seat or they'll stand up, pat you on the back and be like, all right, man, nice talking to you. But boy, if they ask you the same question, you tell them how bad it is, boy, they'll buy you a lemonade, sit down, rub your head, rub your back, say, can you want to call me later and talk about it? Boy, people will love. People are used to, are conditioned to celebrating misery, failure, worry, stress, anxiety. They're used to commiserate, right? And so if you love yourself, if you talk highly about yourself, talk highly to yourself, you're a whole bunch of names. But if you're miserable and unhappy and unhealthy, then you're normal and everybody can't wait to talk to you, right? But that doesn't lead to what we desire in life. So we are the control and power of our life. And so we have to make sure what we're saying to ourselves, about ourselves, and about our world is what we want to experience.